morning, everyone. Thank you very much for being here today. I'm Tara Pai, a physical therapist at the Department of Rehab Services. I'm happy to be here and to have this opportunity to speak to all of you. So I'm hoping the next 30 minutes you're not going to die of boredom. And I love talking about this. So if I get intense and passionate, just raise your hand and say you're getting intense and passionate, Tara. You need to slow down. This is going to be applicable to things you do. So we're going to try and talk about things that you probably know, and this might be a refresher. It's just something that we see a lot in our profession. We have patients who come in with all sorts of problems related to their jobs and what they might be doing, and mechanics is a big part of it. So we thought, thought that this would be a good opportunity to bring in some information, and for those of you who might be hearing it for the first time, we're going to do demonstrations. For those of you who've heard it before and are doing it the right way, this is just a refresher. So I hope either way it's enlightening. All right. So we're just kind of going to look very quickly at back pain, understand what the spine looks like to us and what it does. Identify risk factors that might come your way, and then understand strategies to prevent some of this stuff. Before I get started, I know Dulce sent me a list of the different job descriptions that we have here under material handling. So I was wondering how many of you have to do bending on a daily basis for work? Okay. How many of you have to do lifting on a daily basis? How many of you stand for prolonged periods of time? How many of you sit for prolonged periods of time? And how many of you do pushing and pulling? All right. How many of you are in awkward postures? None. Wonderful. Great. If I had candy and I was allowed to give out candy, I would give out candy. This is wonderful. Okay. So what I'm going to start with is just looking at how back pain has been affecting a lot of us here in the States. This is from 3 years ago. The more recent data hasn't been compiled as beautifully, so I just kind of pulled that information from 2013. But the numbers are a little bit higher for 2014 and costs. You'll see 8 out of 10 Americans are afflicted by back pain. The costs have gone up from 97 to 2013 when the reports came out. And if you look at patients who are 18 years and over and compare them to 65 years and over, both of those numbers have gone up over the last 16 years or so. We're also seeing that women tend to have more problems than men. There are a lot of different factors that can explain that. A lot of women have had children and then their abdominal muscles are weak, so there are those factors in there. Plus how women are structured compared to how men are structured is another influence. We're also looking at the reporting by women compared to men is different of back pain. There might be many factors associated there, but that seems to be some of the research-based data that's come out. We're looking at recovery and recurrence. Big part of what prevention is and what we look at as education when you come in with a back problem. We'll see that some of these symptoms come on and they're gone in a short period of time because the body is a wonderful work of engineering. It will heal itself if you let it heal itself and you do the right things while it needs to recover. If you have a problem that keeps recurring because of whatever you do or the nature of the problem being intense, maybe you'll have a possible re-involvement of the area within 2 years. But some of us are either structured a certain way, that's our anatomy, our genetics makes us a little more prone to having something stick around for longer, and some of us just have jobs, or some of us have lifestyles that do not let us get away from this unwelcome guest, and that's about 7 to 10% of us will have chronic low back pain. Sitting here right now, are there people who experience low back pain? Okay. Often,
every once in a while.
Every once in a while.
Feels like sciatica.
Okay. And how about you? Once in a while. Anybody has been to physical therapy before? All right. So you know how we give exercises and how we talk about lifting, bending, and things and strategies that will help you protect your spine. That's basically what some of this lecture is geared towards, is to have you prevent your injuries, to avoid having to come see wonderful people like us, which means you're leading better and healthy, quality-based lives, and you're doing well by way of your spine, which means the shelf life of your spine is pretty long, right? If you don't overwork it beyond a certain point, you're going to be able to keep the wear and tear to a minimum. Okay, don't avoid wear and tear because that's what life is. We're going to use the body. There's going to be wear and tear. You couldn't drive a car without putting miles on the tires. It's the same exact thing. The last thing that I would say is there is a cost associated with having back pain. It's not just direct medical costs, but also time lost, insurance overheads, impact on the family. If you have to miss work, then you know the things that happen with missing work. So we want this not to be a part of your life, and that's why this lecture hopefully will give you some more information that hopefully will be applicable to things you do in daily life and here at work. Okay? So one of the main reasons why employees miss work, and one of the top 10 reasons for them to go to emergency rooms or to come see us after they've seen the doctor. Very quickly, this is our spine as seen from the side. We've got the neck, the cervical spine, the thoracic spine moves a little less, the lumbar spine, which is the low back, moves a lot more like the neck, and then the tailbone or the sacral area, which moves very little. So this is where the bulk of our movement happens. But this is where the bulk of our lifting is happening. That's where the loads are going. This is what it looks like. We've got the vertebrae, we've got our little shock absorbing discs in there, we've got nerves coming out of there, and then there are vertebrae all the way down, varying in size depending on what the body requires out of that region. Smaller here, larger here, because this is part of our weight-bearing chain. These are the muscles that support it. Think of muscles as a first line of defense. If you had a castle and there were guards outside and they fell asleep and the enemy comes to the front gate and the guards are sleeping, guess who's going to have to come out and fight? It's going to have to be the general, right? He's going to have to leave the castle. If these guys are not absorbing the forces of daily use or movement, this guy's going to get all the wear and tear, and those forces start to accelerate the breakdown of the tissues. By breakdown, I mean as we get older, you'll hear people say, oh, it's good old Arthur, my joints tell me there's going to be rain. That wear and tear that's happening, the breaking down of the cartilage, is normal. But in some of us, when we're weak in the muscles and stuff, that gets accelerated because the spine's not supported by our own internal brace, which is these muscles in the core. And that's why you'll hear a lot of these people saying everything's in the core, this is your foundation. If these guys are unhappy, then everything's going on strike pretty soon. Okay? This just tells you what are discs. So you'll hear a lot of people, maybe family, friends, say, hey, you know, my disc popped out, I have a slip disc. This little shock absorbing thing is all fluid based. As we get older, as the water content reduces, that's why our height kind of looks like it's a little bit reduced as we get older. This sponginess keeps us from having a lot of wear and tear at the bones and joints that are formed between the two vertebrae. So it allows you to get a little bit more of that dissipation of forces, so you're not transferring it directly to the bones and joints. So with your muscles, we have these other things that the body has naturally provided. When they start to get older or more worn out, that's when these problems start to begin. So what do you define as good posture? Anybody?
Straight. Standing straight.
Good, good. Ideally, good posture is the most efficient use of your muscles, and it produces the lowest risk of injury. So right now, I would say it's not practical for everyone to sit up robot-like. Everybody has a neutral, but it varies. The neutral might be different for you, as it might be for me, for my sibling. We have to find our neutral and try to make it work for us. Most people, at the end of the day, will let gravity overtake, and then everybody's just kind of drooping down, right? For a few minutes, that's fine, but you do it long enough, and you're going to start to load things up in a way that doesn't feel good. And parts of the disc, parts of the joint start to bear more pressure, then the other parts are starting to get more pushed on, and then you might see things like a disc start to move out, and then start to get closer to the nerves, which it can hit and cause all sorts of pain. Right? So we want to be able to use good posture because it does affect how we load everything, and the least possible load comes from the most neutral position your spine allows you to do. Different for different people, different for men, different for women, different for your children, different for your siblings. So don't use one rule applying to all in its absolute. You will have to modify it to best suit you. Alright. Similarly, body mechanics is the safest and most efficient methods of moving, our emphasis for today. And using that effectively will help you protect your joints. Okay? You will find, somebody will tell you that, hey, you know, when I sit for so long, After a few minutes, I'm fine, but after an hour, then things start to hurt, there's some pinching in the shoulder blades. You'll start to hear that. It might not be you, but it might be your colleagues, it might be your family members, because they might be stuck in a position for so long. I think the advantage that you have and I have is that we get to move a lot. We're not just stationary in one position. If we were stationary in one position, that's too much sustained loading. Anything that goes on beyond a period of time can be a lot more aggravating to the structures of our body. So if you're standing too long and not taking enough of a rest break, that can be a problem. If you're sitting too long and not standing enough to give your spine a little rest, that can be a problem too. Same with faulty repeated bending. So far it makes sense? Mm-hmm. Yeah? So these are the common causes of back pain. Improper posture in sitting and standing, sudden or frequent twisting or bending of the back, and sometimes a combination of the two happens in real life all the time. The good thing is you probably already know not to do that, but it does happen at times. You've got a baby that's trying to get away from you and you've got to run after the baby and scoop them up as quickly as possible. You're going to have to do the bending and the twisting, but those are one-off things. We want to avoid that on a frequent basis. Lifting, carrying, pushing, pulling in poor positions. How many of you who know what the right thing is go out on the streets and see people doing this terrible thing? That's my occupational hazard. I cannot walk outside and not judge someone's gait or watch their mechanics. And I've been known to go into stores and tell people, hey, I'm a physical therapist. I think you should bend slightly differently because I think you're going to hurt your back. And my family will not entertain that anymore. They're like, if you're going to go talk to that person, I don't want to be around you. Let me walk away first. Because I am so worried that they're going to hurt their back. I won't say it to everybody, but if I think they're going to receive it well, I'll go do it because I don't want them to be in pain. And then poor physical condition. If we're generally deconditioned, we're going to have an issue with keeping those muscles strong. So our guards are going to fall asleep and the general's going to have to come fight the enemy. We don't want that. So that's another cause. And then illnesses, if we're dealing with other things going on, doesn't allow our body to be at its healthiest, so which means we're more prone to more injuries. Increased body mass index, which is the weight of our body relative to what's normal for our age, our height. Those are issues because in the research it shows you the spine is part of the weight-bearing chain. The spine is where a lot of movement happens. When a lot of movement happens at a place, a lot of wear and tear happens. Think of a car, right? Where most of the movement happens is where most of the wear and tear will happen. Think of your knees, think of your hips. There's a lot of movement happening there. These become prone to break down more easily. So if you have more weight, the research shows the breakdown is quicker. And it's more, it's harder to get out of that until the weight is kept in check and then you bring back your strength and improve your mechanics. So it's a multifactorial thing. Poor nutrition, you need to heal. If you don't heal well, your tissues are going to kind of probably be in that state of disrepair. So eating well, getting all your minerals and your vitamins in, not smoking, because nicotine is known to be a big influencer of your recovery because nicotine doesn't allow good tissue healing. Lack of work satisfaction makes you prone to it. Doesn't mean that you're going to have back pain if you don't like your job, but it might make you prone to it. So that's some of the stuff that's out there in the research and well established. Sometimes when they all come together, it's a perfect storm. And then we might have a few of these factors and we'll say, oh, we can check this off. So coming down to what you guys do here, there's a lot of loading and unloading and moving goods within a workplace. I got that right? Yeah? Not the best picture, and I'll explain why. It can involve lifting, pushing, pulling, carrying, or holding, and I think we've talked about that, and everybody does some amount of that over here. It was the only one that pulled up on the internet. It was the most terrible one, I think. Just look at how terrible her mechanics are out here. I'm sure somebody here will say, hey, that's not how we do it, you know. But just look at these faulty mechanics out here. This guy might be the most decent, but all of the rest are terrible. So we need to talk to these folks and say, get your pictures right. But one of the things that do happen, work does, not just with you, we've seen it in nurses, right? You'll hear all these nurses having back pain because their occupation involves moving patients and patients who are unconscious. Just like you move heavy things, just like we move heavy things, if the patient's not cooperative and the nurses are not using good body mechanics, they'll hurt their back. So before all these hoists and these beds came in, they were so prone to that. So some of us might be more prone to injuries because we just do things on a repeated basis because that's our job. 40 hours a week, that's what we're doing. How we do it well and how we save ourselves and use good body mechanics is where, like I said, we prolong the shelf life of our spine. sudden or frequent twisting and bending. They're not babies running away all the time, but there are other things we do all the time. If we can do them right, I think we're going to be able to avoid it. But these things do happen. They happen often enough that one time it happens that you should have not done it, it'll be the one that you get injured. Or it wasn't that one thing that did it, but other things that were cumulative stress. You keep working in this position, and then one day you decide to go chase that baby, and oh, now you can't straighten out, right? So who hasn't heard of those things happen with some folks who are prone to it? And then lifting, carrying, pulling, pushing in poor positions, most of which is right over here. So you'll see that those can influence your symptoms too. This is why it's a problem. If you just look at the pressure on the discs in this bent position over here with a little weight here, it's almost like you've got 250 pounds of pressure there on your disc. That's a lot of force. That's a lot of force to put through those things. And add that over and over the course of your day. Add that over and over the course of your week, months, and so on and so forth. So while I have to work with my patients, if I'm not protecting myself, there goes my career after a few years. I'm not going to be able to do the stuff I love to do, you know? So I've got to be just as mindful as you have to be. This is not just for work, but it's for life too. So I hope I can send you home with something that you've learned new, or something that gets reinforced and you say, I'm doing this right, I feel good about myself, I've been protecting my health, the health of my spine. Ah, isn't this what we've become now? Everybody, I'm on the T for an hour and 15 minutes, in the bus and the trains. Me included. So I keep telling myself, what do I tell my patients? What do I tell my patients? So I keep looking up. But every now and then you might find me on the T doing exactly what I shouldn't. Look at how much force there is. When you're bent forward, 60 pounds of force going through this guy here. That's a lot. That's a lot. Tell me a spine and a disc segment's not going to get unhappy with us. Everything is going to go on strike the more we do it, right? So just a little bit to just throw that in there so we are attentive to that. Other things we need to do that we can help understand what brings us to a higher risk is just to know where we are in life. If we're older, more prone to it because the wear and tear is starting to catch up, right? So you want to be a little more careful, attentive to your fitness, attentive to how you do things, to know that your body is changing. I'm getting older, I've been moving a lot around the country, and my husband's like, enough of your machismo now. I'm going to get a mover because you're no longer lifting and moving your boxes. We're getting older, we need to stop doing these things to our body. Get the young, able-bodied professional people to do it. So if you know ahead of time there are things you can do and be creative and get someone to help you doing it, it spares you a little bit of the work, you get the help, somebody's happy to be asked to help you, and you're still protecting things for a long, long time to come. Ideal situations doesn't always happen, but the best we can, if we can manage this 80% of the time, the remaining 20 that we can't see, we're at least in a good enough position to say, hey, we can ward that off, because we looked after ourselves, so every now and then this little tweak here and there, we're fine with. Okay? Doesn't work the same way for everyone, but it gives you more, that's your insurance, you've looked after yourself. Diseases, like we said, cancer, arthritis can all cause back pain. We just want to make sure we know if we're prone to it. Family history, you're getting your screens and all of that. Posture and alignment. Some of us are just structured differently. I've got a little scoliosis, so I'm a little more prone to certain things. And if I don't stretch and I don't strengthen, as I get older, those forces that are incorrect, you saw how the spine looks, mine looks a little bit off kilter, those could multiply. So they might still multiply and make me prone to pain. But if I'm looking after myself, I can try, and my mechanics, I can definitely try and stave that off. Improper lifting, if you're not using your back and you're using your legs, work environment, and lack of exercise, again, things we just talked about. Psychological conditions, we talked about the preventable risk factors, like smoking might influence healing, excessive weight, and psychological conditions. If you're already anxious and you're given something to do that you don't like, that might make you more anxious, and you might just not do it right, even though you know how to. So little things to think about. So what can we do? I think good posture is a good start. But no, ergonomics, fitting the task to do what you should do for your body. We know what's ideal, but our body has to fit the job, or the job has to fit our body, so we might have to take precautions ourselves, following the general guidelines and tweaking it as it's appropriate to us. Okay? Can I have someone come up here very quickly and we'll demonstrate a few things over here? Any volunteers? Or I'll be a volunteer and I'm going to, if someone can let me
Jen, I
chair.
will help.
No.
I'll take a chair and then someone come correct my posture. Okay? Whoever wants to come correct. Thank you. So I'm going to show you. All right. Oh, I know. We got a cheat sheet right here.
It's off. I guess the back.
Yeah.
Straighten the back.
Straighten the back. What else?
Maybe she's
The
just
feet.
closer to the tape.
Okay, good. Now this is not the ideal height.
Oh no, this is supposed to be flush. Is it too high?
Slightly higher for me,
Yeah.
but I could always elevate my arms or lower the desk if I had that option, or get the seat up a bit, and so I'm right here. What else? Yeah, my feet should be flat. Well,
I wasn't saying that.
all right, and if you look at where the knees are, right, there's a little bit of a distance between the seat band and the knees, so it's not jamming into your knee. So things like that to be mindful of if that's what you do. And since women tend to be more on the petite side, and the chairs are meant for all tall men, as I've seen, they're getting the new sizes out, but they might be lost somewhere in that seat band. So for women, there's this petite size chair if you're below 5'1". But if not, you can get a footrest if your feet don't hit the floor, so that you can go all the way back, tip back about 5 degrees or 10 degrees so your spine's not straight down, and the work is being done by your chair back. Thank you. All right. So the reason that you want your back to not be straight up is because of the forces going straight through. The tipping back will allow the forces to be more in a less aggressive manner with that sustained loading. It will load your spine, but it won't be as aggressive as sitting here. And by aggressive, I mean over the years that'll add up. Additionally, if your thighs and knees are not in the proper line, that could be a problem too, because then it changes the pressure on your hips, it forces your spine to be bent forward, and that can add a lot of irritation to the discs, as we saw. A lot of pressure increases as you're sitting, and when you're bending and you add some weight, that makes it worse. This is clear? Easy to follow? Okay. So remember, if you are in a chair that's really meant for someone else, scooch all the way back, get yourself close, but get a footrest or a box or something to keep under your feet. It will be the ideal situation, and don't sustain postures more than 20 or 30 minutes, maybe 45. Some of us can go longer, but over a period of time that will start to put too much load. So let's be careful about that early on. You know, so use the proper chair, make sure the feet are supported, get a cushion if you have to. I tell some of my office folk, hey, take something with you, or roll a scarf or a jacket and put it in the small of your back. And then if you're sitting forward, make sure that your knees are not coming up. They're slightly below your hip level, so that you're, again, not forcing your back to be in that little horrible curve that we don't like to see. Same for when you're driving, just make sure you're not too far away, your feet are in a comfortable position, your knees are a little higher than your hips. This will change if you have problems, but one rule doesn't fit all exactly. There might be some modifications needed depending on what other things might be going on, but in general, this is a good rule of thumb to have good posture even when you're driving, because some of us have to drive 45 or 50 minutes just to get to work. Then you have to do the same thing again to get back, and if traffic's a nightmare, you're stuck for longer, right? So just be attentive to sitting even in the car. All right, somebody come correct my posture here. Anybody? This is me trying to make bread, okay? What else? I'm standing here for an hour now. I should have taken a break at 30 minutes, but I've got a tough order and I just can't stop. What else can I do?
Just take a break.
Take a break.
Stretch, maybe.
Stretch, great.
Lift the leg.
Lift the leg, yeah. I can just open this up and then rest my foot over there. 10 minutes later, I can rest the other foot. Open the other one up. If it's an obstruction or you don't have something like this, then you change things around and find another way to do it. Either bring the foot up or just rest it this way on the ground and then shift weight after 10 minutes and go to the other foot. This is because it takes the pressure off your back. It takes the pressure off your pelvic joints and your hips. It makes it a little more tolerable. And then every 30 minutes or so, a little gentle squat, or if you have a seat close by, if you can sit for a half minute, that would be ideal. Doesn't happen every day for everybody. Even I have patients back to back and it won't happen. But I'm constantly up and down, so I don't ever sustain postures too long until the end of the day when I have to document it. Okay? So far so good? Easy enough? Yeah. Just threw in something, don't sleep on the job, but this is important to know. Good posture, spine in neutral, whether you're on your side or on your back. Just make sure the pillow is the right thickness to keep everything in line. If you're on your side and you've got broad shoulders, you'll need a couple of pillows. If you've got your head tilted to the ground, to the bed or up, and if that's just too much for you, then you're probably not going to enjoy how your sleeping posture feels unless you have neck pain. Then you're going to have to do some of these things. And make sure that you test out your mattress before you buy one. It's worth spending money on because you spend at least a third of your life sleeping. So it's worth spending money on. If that's one purchase you want to invest in, make sure it's a good one. And try it out when you're not tired and not when you're too fresh either. Just go there and see how comfortable you feel, okay? The 3 L's, right? You want to make sure the load's right and you can lift it. If you can't, you'll have to find someone to help you. You want to lock your back in a nice neutral position as best as possible. And your legs, you want to keep them shoulder width apart with 1 foot forward so that you can use your legs to lift. Okay, sometimes you'll do a different kind of lift and we're going to talk about that in just a few minutes. You're going to lift steadily and smoothly and not jerk. No quick jerky motions. We are not in the gym. Okay, and even there I don't like that. Do not twist. The biggest thing you'll see some people do because they're in such a hurry. Who's seen that happen, right? And imagine what that's doing. Your discs can only take so much shearing. At some point they're going to start to complain, and when they complain you're going to see one of us and we're not fun. Wear comfortable shoes. Always wear comfortable shoes. I think that takes so much of the tension off, and if you walk a lot, replace them every few months if you can. It's worth it because they are going to absorb some of the shock. So you're only sending so many forces up. Do not stand or work with knees locked, just like we saw over here with standing. And stand up straight when carrying loads. If you slump, you've put that pressure on that we saw with the discs. Alright? I want someone to come and demonstrate how they would lift this box up here in front. Anyway, you probably all do it right. Thank you. Ah, okay. So, what else do we, just a little tweak. Don't go back. Try it again. Try it again.
Slowly.
Okay, good. Lifting with your legs. The other thing that I saw you do was a slight twist. Might not bother you one time, but you do it often enough and it can be a problem. Thank you very much. Excellent. Same thing as you lift. You want to lift with the knees, you also want to place, okay, with the knees bent. This is protecting your spine for life. You want long life and good health of your spine. So you plan your lift, you ask for help, you widen your base of support. None of those dainty little lifting things. We're not lifting a handbag. Tighten your stomach muscles. Your spine needs the muscles to work. That is your own brace. Those are the guards fighting the enemy before the general comes out. Keep your load close and keep your back straight. So somebody else come up here and lift for me, please. Anyway, no judgment. This is where we're learning. No judgment at all. Therapists are very happy to see good lifting mechanics, really. Alright, I'm going to do something. You tell me what I've done wrong. Everything? Alright. Now I'm going to lift this and I'm going to place this here. What did I do wrong? Yeah. Who's going to fix this for me? Somebody.
Try go again. You're the only good person who wants to.
I never take the first chair.
I know, right? I learned. So,
Yeah.
if I want to lift and...
Lift in place with just one. Are you okay?
Like this, then I turn,
Yeah. And
then I
then,
place it.
yeah. And if you need to bend, bend. Are you okay?
Yeah.
Your turn just, yeah.
Oh yeah, actually I need to go.
Yeah, watch out, yeah. Alright. Alright, so that last bit was a little bit of twisting. You gotta still turn, face what you want to get. And lift up, hold it close. Okay, this one doesn't have handles, but handles help a lot. Alright, so this is part of what we just did. Use those knees, use the 2-hand squat method. Okay? Don't use it if the load can't be brought between your knees. Then what you did was better. When you're doing a diagonal lift, it's only some of the times when you just can't get the other kind of lifting done. Make sure that as you lift it, not the best box, but make sure that as you lift it, I would probably turn it this way. Okay, get it close to you, lift up, and then if you want to turn it around, you can bring it around. That might make it much easier on your back. Walk your feet, no twisting. You want to place something, walk your feet, okay? Very important because you will do this, I don't even know how many times a day, 200 times maybe. If you're not doing it right, multiply that by 52 weeks. And then by as many years as you've done it. That was bad. Alright. The golfer's lift, only if something's light, you know, you don't do it all the time. You're going down bending, lifting something up with just one hand. So it has to be light, under 20 pounds. The other leg comes off, taking some of the strain off the back that would have come from this terrible, terrible bending. I see it a lot. You wouldn't believe how many times I see it. I think we need to put commercials on TV or something. All right? We don't know what weight works for everybody. What is safe for you might not be safe for me. Okay? So use your judgment. Ideally 51 pounds. You've heard at the airport they only allow you 50 pounds in a bag at the most, because it's not safe to lift heavier than that, generally speaking. So based on a study and some ideal conditions that they established, 75% of women could carry 51 pounds and 90% of males could. Anybody wants to stretch? Should do a good stretch for it. All right, this would be about the time to stretch. But we found where the factors are that affect lifting. I'm just going to talk about those a little bit more. If I'm lifting there and I'm lifting here, big difference. So if this was heavier, if this was 20 pounds and I was here, think about what my back's doing, not happy. And I'm doing the same thing from here, a lot better. I have better mechanics and it's much easier in my spine, right? Depending on how heavy it is, you want to make sure that it is the right amount of width. Shouldn't be over 30 inches, ideally. It doesn't always happen. If it's too big and bulky, time to do a team lift. Okay? But if it's really big and bulky, don't even attempt to lift it, even if it's light. Best to ask for help. Anybody want to do a team lift for me? I know you guys got to go. We're going to wrap this up very quickly. Alright. Just watch out for the table. Before you lift, let me see how you guys do the team lift.
Team left. I guess we got it.
Alright. Ideally, this is light. And let's lower it down. Make sure you're talking to each other and saying 1, 2, 3, lift. I'm guessing you guys are doing this. Have to verbalize. This is like This is like they do with the nurses too. If you're not talking, somebody's pulling and the other guy didn't know they had to pull. Or the other girl didn't know she had to pull. Guess what's going to happen, right? Somebody is going to be on a really unpleasant spot. Alright, so how quickly you lift and how fast and how frequently will determine how much fatigue and wear and tear there is. Try and get rest breaks when you can. Okay? Try and get a little bit of a breathing moment, and if you can't, you can't. But the best you can on most days, I think you will be able to at least just rest for a second, then start the picking up again. Okay? And even if you do it for lighter loads, it does increase chance of injury when you're fatigued. So if you're going to work really tired, have to be very good about the body mechanics, because your muscles are probably saying, hey, today is going to be a tough day. You know it, go in knowing you have to use good mechanics. Make sense so far? Don't stack it badly, guys. This is going to be terrible if you do a bad job. This one, I don't know, must be all formed. But you want to have good center of stability, otherwise you're going to cause some sort of bending trying to hold on to the load. Not worth it. Totally not worth it. Good handles make a big difference. If you don't have handles and you can put a handle on it, totally worth it. Totally worth it. I know I'm sort of advertising all this, but I've seen so many things happen because of the way people do poor lifting and don't plan ahead. I've seen dollies here, I've seen mechanical lifts, use them. Okay? A power grip's the better one. These little dainty little kits are only for precision, not for power. So use a power grip. And then just make sure there are no obstacles. This is not a ninja warrior course, so make sure that everything is clear and it's not slippery and you've got good shoes. Make sure there's no clutter. Make sure that the temperature is right. If you don't feel it's right, take off the layers that you've got, the extra layers, so you're not hurting yourself. If you come in from the cold, make sure you're warmed up a little bit, you know, before you start working. You don't want to work cold muscles. Sorry about the shoes here, but women are different from men. We know that in everything, sports and also with lifting and stuff, so account for that. I'm telling you again, I would do stuff that I thought my husband was doing, but I thought I could do it, and now I'm having to admit, hey, I can't. I knew it also, but I have a little machismo. Stretch, everybody, okay? Important to stretch at all times. Carrying, I think we know we have to carry so we can see where we're going, so don't stack them up. Same thing as stability. Make sure your surfaces are clear. If you're not seeing where you're going, you know what's going to happen. Pushing and pulling, same things. Make sure you're pushing instead of pulling. Pulling's a lot more effort on the body. Keep good neutral spine, get those core muscles engaged, just some gentle belly button tightening as long as it doesn't hurt. And then make sure that you're shifting the body weight instead of bending in the back. So you're shifting the body weight, you're not pushing like that, all right? Just make sure that you understand your ergonomic principles or your body mechanics. If it's a big thing, ask for help. People will be there to help you. If they're not, wait till you get help for that thing, but move on to something else, okay? Don't hurt yourself. Something wider than 30 inches might typically be too bulky, so ask for help there as well. Hands in front of the body, we know all of this stuff. So I'm just going through the stuff that we just did quickly, making sure you minimize it. There's a lot of heavy stuff going on. Try and like cross training for marathoners, they have to do swimming to take some of the load off. If you're going to do a lot of lifting, try to avoid something too strenuous in the same day where possible. Where not possible, we'll have to do the best we can. And then you should be physically fit. You're doing a pretty physically demanding job. I'm doing a physically demanding job. If I'm not fit, you know, there goes my career. All right, so use a team lift. I think we talked about that. Everybody feels comfortable with team lifts and talking to each other. Okay, do not talk to each other. Okay, use lift tables and lift trucks where needed, and try to change the height of the load. If you can use a lift truck to bring it up from there, it's easier. Knuckle height to shoulder is ideal. Use that. Okay, I think we have some of these around the hospital. Handles, again, I've talked about a lot of these. This is just kind of bringing it all together. Rotate jogs, we talked about that. Rest breaks, we talked about that. Adjust your temperatures, come and get some coffee, get the blood going. These bells, not so great, not so great. Might not help you as much as they say it would, but it can also deceive you into lifting more load than you should. So even at the gym, folks, you know, think about it. Report all injuries, most important. If you have something, the quickest way to get it addressed is report it. Otherwise, you might carry on with something too long to hurt yourself further. Okay? So quick review. Strongest position of the spine?
Straight.
Yeah. Neutral. 3 L's of lifting. Think of the watermelon. Okay. Assess your load. Lock your spine in neutral and use the legs to lift in the wide base. Okay? And smoothly and slowly. And then 3 risk factors. Any of the risk factors you see on a daily
Poor
basis.
diet.
Sorry?
Poor nutrition, right?
Yeah, one of the things. Something more common than that. I don't.
Pushing.
Poor posture.
Pushing.
Good. Lifting it properly with some twisting. Anything else? So most of the things we talked about, awkward posture, the load being too heavy, okay? The load being unstable. Now we've got 3 boxes on top of that. I did that just now. They saw me and somebody in materials management said, hey, that's bad. And I was like, I know, I'm going to give a lecture on that in 2 minutes. Load unstable. No handles, and then all of the other stuff we talked about, environmental stuff. You're pushing, you're not communicating with your team lifting colleague, not resting enough, not stretching enough, not taking the breaks you need. I'm not saying sit down and don't do your job. I'm just saying rest and don't sustain. Okay, if you're standing for 30 minutes, try and do a squat or try and sit for a minute or so. I think that's everybody will be okay with that. Okay, stop, take a break. Think about what you have to do, plan ahead. We're going to be busy, we can't help it, but do the best you can. We know these things happen, that is life. It happens with everybody in all circumstances. Remember, if you're sitting at a computer for any length of time, after 20 minutes do the 20-20, so look 20 feet away for 20 seconds. It gives your muscles a rest, allows your neck also not to be straight. There's nothing like physical fitness. Don't go out and do weekend warrior stuff, but a consistent routine is going to keep you in good stead forever. Some people will get away with doing no exercise. I really don't know how that happens, but they have fabulous genes. Not all of us are that lucky. So for those of us who aren't that lucky and who put ourselves through a lot of wear and tear, a little bit of stretching daily, a little bit of exercise 2 or 3 times a week, some good cardio, I think this machine will run for a long time. Remember, prevention's always worth a lot more than cure. Right? Questions? Yes?
For the training.